You are listening to Judging Meghan with your host, Meghan Judge. Before I introduce my guest that I'm so excited to have on today, I am going to talk about my usual intro that I love to talk about all the time, which is my eyesight and how annoying glasses are and how much I hate them. So if you've been tuning in for the past year, I've talked about how much I hate glasses. I finally got to the point where I went to my eye appointment. They were like, your eyesight has gone even more downhill. I don't even know how that happens. It's called getting old, which is so fun, but I'm glad I'm still here. So they tried to do a tutorial on wearing contacts for me, and it was terrifying. So the eye doctor was trying to explain to me, I wasn't freaked out by like touching the eye, but I was so freaked out about getting the contact out. And it's kind of one of those things where you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Is that the saying? I had to sleep overnight with these contacts in. I was so freaked out about them. I had to go back to the eye doctor the next day to get the stupid contacts out. I was so embarrassed because they basically were saying, oh, we teach 8-year-olds how to do this. Here I am walking in with my tail between, because I thought for sure, oh, no problem, I can get them out on my own. Anyways, I couldn't. So the contacts are sitting in my bathroom right now. I was going to attempt to wear them today because you know I love wearing my glasses, listeners. But here we go. I'm wearing them and then I'm going to take them off like I always do and just not be able to see. But I will add one other thing. My eyesight has become so bad that I didn't realize when I put my contacts on how much I've aged. So I guess the good part is my prescription is outdated. So I can't tell unless I'm wearing those contacts. I almost feel like I'm safer not wearing them because I can't see all my wrinkles. Okay, that's the vanity portion of the show. But you know what? We're going to be talking fitness and health and all this stuff. We've all been put here for a reason, and we all deserve acceptance.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.
I'm a trauma survivor from a really young age, and I have been diagnosed with complex PTSD in the past few years. I've been surrounded by death and abuse much of my life. I've been dragged through the mud and have been to the point of not wanting to go on anymore. Through my interviews with other survivors, I've learned that there is a way out. From recovering to surviving and thriving, we all have the strength to come out the other side.
You are listening to Judging Meghan.
I'm excited to have my guest on today. His name is Steve Jordan. Steve has a new book that came out called Pickleball Power, which, Steve, I can't wait to talk to you because I love pickleball and I'm horrible at it, but we're going to discuss. This is very exciting. He also has a book out that came out a few years ago. If I'm wrong on that, correct me. 22 Ways to Optimal Health and Fitness. He is also a podcaster. His podcast is called The Steve Jordan Experience. He is owner of the Westwood Private Fitness, and you can find him at stevejordan.com.
I have to say, your intro on the glasses, I have a pair myself that I have had for about a year. I know I'm approaching 50 years old, and my eyesight is finally starting to wane a little bit, but I'm still trying not to wear them because, I mean, I like them. They're comfortable, but even as I put these on, things are a little bit clearer.
But okay. So first of all, I can't wait. You do not look your age, whatever.
Oh, thank you.
You look great. I thought I was talking to somebody. I'm like, oh, this youngster that I'm talking to right now. But I do want to say, because we're around the same age, that getting old and having to, and again, my listeners are like, here she goes again, talking about the glasses and getting old, but the vanity portion of wearing glasses. So I won't even wear mine in Target. So I talk about all the time.
Well, you look great in them. They look really good on you.
I don't like wearing them. So I'll walk around in my sunglasses everywhere. So people are like, okay, Beyonce, like get over yourself. But it's because I can't see.
Well, maybe you get a prescription sunglass that you can wear.
I
do.
I do.
Okay.
I do. And if we were back in the 60s I would be wearing like bifocals because that's how bad
Uh,
I have an astigmat. Oh, it's a whole thing.
a
Okay.
stigma, okay.
So, what also want to add is when Steve and I started chatting, he said that he has had a podcast on for 7 years. So,
Hmm.
you are probably my first guest in 4 years that has had a podcast on that long. So,
Well, thank you.
you,
Yeah,
that's really impressive.
well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. It's a labor of love, as you
Hmm.
know. It's a passion project. I started out 7 years ago with no expectations other than building my brand and offering advice and being able to interview some really extraordinary people that I was able to network with and bring health education, wellness, mindset, nutrition, holistic health, medicine, functional medicine, all that to people's attention, and it just kind of began, and I got into it. I loved it, as I'm sure you do. And so I was doing one a week, and as I expressed, I got slower at doing it now. I only release 1 or 2 episodes a month. I was doing one a week because I have a newborn. He's about 2 years old. He'll be two next month. So the time that I had to do it
Hmm.
oftentimes gets eaten up by spending time with him, which I totally love, and he deserves that, and I deserve that.
Is
So
this your first?
it is my first, yes,
Okay.
and last.
Okay. Well, welcome to the
It's
world of
yeah.
parenthood. I know that
Thank
I
you.
know that everyone's like, "Oh, it's the terrible twos." Try the terrible 14s. Get ready for
Yeah,
that, or the terrible
I heard
10s.
it's all the stage. There's never it's
No.
all always a learning experience.
No, it is, but well, I'm saying this morning because my kids were well behaved on the way to school. It's the most magical gift that I think a human being can be given if that's what they want to do with their life. That's my opinion. I always wanted to be a
I
mom.
agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. I'm glad it happened later than never. I always wanted to have a kid. My wife and I, we were trying for a couple years, failing and not succeeding at it. And
Hmm.
then finally it worked, and we were able to, conceive. And it's been amazing. But I can see why having kids earlier in life is important, and or not that you can't at any age, but it is more challenging. It is more energy consuming, patience as well. But you also have a lot more wisdom. There's a lot more like give that I think that I allow for him than I would in my earlier if I had him earlier. And I also am not so hyper focused on work and
Yeah.
my career that I can step back and be okay with doing a podcast once or twice a month and not being upset that I'm not producing or making money or working with people, whatever it is. I have more boundaries now in my career and life.
I think too, men are, and don't take offense to this, but men evolve later than women do, like
Totally.
so a lot of times when I meet men and they have their kids at an older age, which by the way, I think that turning 50 in your late 40s, and this is like a whole new world. And we're in a time now where I'm like, okay, thank God we're aging during this time and not like when my grandma was my age because she already had a perm and like, the curlers in her hair and all of that
Totally.
stuff. So I always think it's great that men have their kids at all ages, but I do think that having kids for men at an older age when their career is in check and they can kind of be a more present parent is really great for dads. I do think that for sure.
Yeah, thanks for confirming that. I would say I feel that way, at least for me personally. So it feels good. It feels right. It's still stressful. There's
Yeah.
no question about it. Balancing work and life and the responsibilities between the two. There's no question about that. But I have a little bit more patience and I'm a little more at ease, not worrying about what might happen or doesn't happen in my
Yeah, I
career.
love it. Okay, so I told you before we recorded, and my listeners know, my first question is always, tell me a little bit about your childhood and where you're
Mhm.
from.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Clark, New Jersey, East Coast boy.
Me too.
That's
Not from
north.
Clark.
Yeah,
I'm an East
no,
Coaster.
okay,
DC.
East Coaster.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, cool. So that's kind of northeast, about 20 minutes outside of the Holland Tunnel. So New York City was kind of a stone throw away. You grew up in a small suburb town where, more like everybody knew everybody, and it was a very tight community. And I was athletic. I grew up athletic, and also scholar athlete. I was just good all around. I was an all around kid, and I had a great childhood. My parents provided for us. I was able to play baseball, football, lacrosse, and excelled in football and lacrosse at an early age. I ended up becoming captain of my football team and lacrosse team in my senior year in high school. And I was like one of those guys, it was that, the jock, the most popular, the best looking, the best dressed, kind of like I had it all. And I'm telling you this not to, to impress you or try to gloat, but because what's going to happen a year later when I went to University of Maryland, right outside of DC.
Go Terps.
Yeah, go Terps.
Yeah.
I went to a party down at Johns Hopkins University where my close friend that I grew up with was a quarterback there, and we were partying after the game on a balcony about 1 in the morning, somewhere around there. And I was messing around with another buddy of mine. We fell off, and I landed on my head on 2 stories on concrete and split my head open. And I was left in a life and death situation with a traumatic brain injury, losing spinal cord fluid, bleeding out of every orifice of my head, losing gray matter out of my ears, which is the protective matter that kind of keeps your brain together. I was rushed to the University of Maryland shock trauma in a life and death situation and had to undergo emergency brain surgery to save my brain, my life. I was induced in a coma for 4 days and woke up and had no idea where I was, what happened. With short-term, long-term memory loss, tip of the tongue syndrome, where I couldn't speak in complete sentences. I really was out of it. My head was the size of a basketball, over 100 staples and stitches in my head. I also had Bell's palsy on the left side of my face because I crushed the facial nerve that controls the muscles to your face. I also lost hearing in my left ear because I crushed my eardrum from the impact. So life was pretty dismal and bleak. And that's why I tell that story is like I had everything. I
Mm-hmm.
was like that kind of poster child of, success and coolness and whatever. And it just was gone in an instant. And I woke up not knowing what my life would look like and how it was going to turn out physically, mentally, emotionally, and all of the above. 2.5 weeks in intensive care, doctors telling me I wouldn't be able to live a normal life as I did before. I would have brain damage. I wouldn't be able to go back to school. Physically, it probably wouldn't look the same because of the paralysis on the left side of my face, but they were going to do another brain surgery where they're going to implant a nerve from my leg into my head and hope to regenerate that nerve. And it was like a nerve replacement surgery. And so that my face wouldn't sag and my face wouldn't droop and I'd be able to close my eye because even when I went to sleep at night, my eye would stay open. My eye would just kind of roll back behind my eye. And it was scary as all heck. And that particular night, I had a very supportive family. They were there with me like as much as they could. My mom took off of work the whole time she was there. My dad would drive back and forth from Jersey to Baltimore, and it was just it was the scariest time in my life. I had never ever experienced it. I had a couple broken bones when I was growing up, and bumps and bruises from the sports I played, but nothing like this. And I that evening when they told me I was going to have another brain surgery, I got up out of my bed for the first time in almost 2.5 weeks, went to the mirror and saw myself for the first time. My head was shaved from three-fourths over with still hair on one side of my head, on my right side with dried blood in there still. I had a laceration through my forehead, through my eyebrow, with stitches through that, and like ear and head and stitches all around, a big horseshoe around my head. And I started crying hysterically, not knowing what was going to happen. And I looked at myself and I was ashamed. I was scared. I was fearful. But something inspired me. Something, I say it was a divine intervention, like almost like my angel came down to like knock me around a little bit, but like, you got to get out of this state. Right. So I pulled myself together. And for whatever reason, I don't know to this day, nobody else was there. I willed myself. I talked myself into moving my lip. I tried to move it once. I tried to move it two, three, four, 5 times. Nothing happened until one time a spark literally inside my brain and my nervous system turned on my lip where I was able to move it in like a very little bit. That next day, my parents and I went to the doctor's office, which was in the hospital. They talked about this brain surgery and this nerve replacement that they were going to do. And after they told us everything and the risks, the benefits, and what they were expecting and hoping, they said, "Do you have any questions?" And I had told my parents this had happened in the morning, and they're not doctors. They weren't like, "Oh my God, it's a miracle. We need to tell the doctors." But my mom said, "Well, Stephen was able to move his lip," and they're like, "That's impossible. The CAT scans and MRIs are showing his nerve is completely dead." So my mom said, "Stephen, show him." And I showed him, and I did this. If people were watching, I did a little like lip movement where I was able to move my lip just enough where the ENT and the neurosurgeon from Johns Hopkins, we're talking Baltimore, these are the
Yeah,
best of the
John's.
best,
Yeah, 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 yeah.
the best of the best doctors, surgeons in the world. And I was fortunate to have one of the best doctors there at this particular time. He's usually out lecturing, do my brain surgery. They were in shock. They nearly fell over. The ENT, which is an ear, nose, throat doctor, put his hand on my shoulder and said, "You're a miracle, kid." And he walked out. And the neurosurgeon said, and as I tell this, I get goosebumps. I'm like, and I sometimes I almost well up because it's a miracle that this happened, but the miracle is the timing in which it happened. The neurosurgeon said, "Do it again." And he made me do it again. And then he gave me a list of facial exercises to do, like you would train a muscle that was impaired to build the strength back up. And from that point on, I was determined and motivated to never accept defeat or like lack of something ever again. And I committed to fully recovering, and it was a 3-year process with other surgeries after, and a lot of cognitive rehab and unknowing of whether I was going to go back to college and going back to college and then taking a light course load of just like 2 credits or
Yeah.
4 credits, 2 courses per semester for about a year just to acclimate myself, and parents signing waivers against the therapist decisions on keeping me somewhere because they didn't think I was ready,
Yeah.
like a whole big story. So I committed and I fully recovered. And I say that's how I fell into my career because health and fitness at that time became more valuable to me other than performing on the field better and doing better and being stronger or faster to play football or lacrosse better. It was more than looking good for the girls and feeling like sexy and being attractive. It was now like, and it wasn't about physically building myself back up. It was emotionally building myself back up. I was emotionally distraught. Like I couldn't even look at myself in the mirror anymore. So I had to
Can
build up my self conscious, my confidence again, and my ability to interact and be comfortable without feeling judged or looked at because
yeah.
I still had some like asymmetries in my face over time, and I still do to some degree. If you didn't know, you would never know. But like if I smile, like this bottom lip doesn't go all the way down. If I bite into a burger that's thick, and yeah, I eat burgers,
Yeah.
like a quarter, I have to pull my lip down, otherwise I'll bite my lip. So there was a lot of things over many years. I mean, probably even still to this day that I manage and deal with. So that's how I got into my career, and I was able to like motivate people around me and inspire them, and they were inspired by me, by my recovery, because it was bleak and it wasn't as optimistic as I had projected it to be and manifested it
Can
to be. And
can I
that's kind
ask?
of how I got into my career
I think
and
that's
life.
like
That's my
this
story.
story is crazy. But I truly believe that this kind of stuff, I'm really super spiritual. I've interviewed a ton of people. Like one guy, Rick Weary, an author that I interviewed, fell through. He was building a house and he fell through several stories, and he's a paraplegic, and he
Mm.
willed himself. Willed himself to continue to want to live. So when people go through this kind of accident, I just really believe that there was something in you that was, like you said, you were the star athlete, you were the most popular, you were the most handsome, you grew up in, I'm assuming, an affluent area, your parents gave you a good life. Then you went to college. I know University of Maryland, I know Johns Hopkins, I know that whole area. It's a great hospital, like you said, one of the best in the country. And I think that when these kinds of things happen, it's because you have a bigger purpose in life. Like I am all about when people say, okay, everything happens for a reason. People get really irritated by that. And I hate to say it, but I do think that. And here's why. Like if you wouldn't have been able to look in the mirror and cry and will yourself as an athlete. I do believe you were a good athlete. You were playing college level sports at a amazing school. Um, you had that determination in you not to give up. And I think both physically, like the physical part of it, but the mental health piece is the most important. Just that moment of like looking at yourself in a mirror and being determined in that second to keep going. And this isn't like, I mean, because your mental health, I'm sure, took a major toll during that 3 year period. So I would
Yeah,
love
as
to
you say
know.
this, yeah,
I would love to
as you say
know.
this, I get like teary eyed
Yeah,
here.
yeah, but it's important because I would love to know. A lot of my listeners come to this podcast because they're struggling with with loss or grief, or they're dealing with suicidal ideations, like, which I'm very open about, that I struggled with, or some kind of trauma. So that's why people come here to listen each week, because they want to listen to people like you that were able to pull themselves out of this horrific time, this horrific experience. And that one little twitch of the lip, right, was what determined so much of your future and even where you
Mhm.
are today, like being a dad. You talked about in the beginning struggling with fertility, not to give up. I mean, this is all stuff that little accident, which was so hard and horrific at the time, gave you purpose to have like a purpose driven life, which is where you are today, and a writer and doing all the amazing things you're doing. So can you kind of
Thank
talk
you.
about like the the mental health piece of that? If that was a really
Yeah.
long-winded question, sorry.
Yeah, no, it was great. And again, just to recap, I mean, I was literally crying here as you were talking about that. Not crying, but because of how grateful I am. And there's somebody in my life that I've never really acknowledged that history leaves clues. And as you were saying this, and this is what I love about podcasts and interviews, because there's so much depth to it and interest from the person interviewing you or vice versa. My uncle Tony, God rest his soul, when I was playing Pop Warner football, there was this game that we were playing in Pop Warner, and I got knocked down pretty hard. I was like in fifth grade, sixth grade, and I got up and I started crying. And he would come to my practices because my dad was too busy to come to the games or practices, busy working, and he would come and support me. And he picked me up and he said, "Don't let anybody knock you down. Get back in there and get back into that game." And um, thank you, Uncle Tony, for doing that, because I know that that was like, again, probably the beginning of my learning of like, it doesn't matter how hard you fall, like,
Mm-hmm.
just get back up and get back in and just do your best. And I wasn't always the fastest, I wasn't always the biggest, I wasn't always even the best, but I had determination and focus and commitment to do my best. And I believe that that might have been one of the first, at least in my memory, the steps to where it helped. So about mental health, I mean, mental health is an exercise. It's a choice. It's sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And I know that life is it's sucky and it's hard, and there are challenges and in so many ways, facets, and bad things happen to us that are outside of our control. But you just have to like change your language is one of my biggest ways of helping transform people. Like, help yourself, like by using language that is empowering, not disempowering. Like, I am going to do this, or I am like something. The two most powerful words in the English language is I am. And then follow it up with something positive, something that is going to empower you or motivate you. Even if you don't believe it, you have to say it, whether to yourself or outwardly, or to somebody who would support you and believe in and give you that encouragement to continue on that path. So, I just have to say, and the more you do it, again, like a muscle, the stronger it gets, the easier it gets, the more consistent it gets, and all that those variables, when they all come together, it builds momentum, and success begets success little by little. We can't work at trying to get from A to Z. We got to go from A to B. And you can see that when you raise kids, as I'm sure you do now, like, teaching them like numbers. We're teaching them how to count, and it's 1 to 2. It's not 1 to 10. It's 1, 2, and once he gets that, then it's 1, 2, 3, and then he gets that, and it's just building. It's the building blocks of life, and then little by little, and like now he could do 1 to 10, and now 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 are a little bit easier. He's gotten to 15, 16 faster than he was able to get from 1 to 6 because you're building a muscle and muscle memory or a mental memory to be able to create success and build on that. So I think that, at least in my opinion, in my professional life and the way I've coached people to help transform themselves, it first starts in your thoughts. It first starts in your language and how you speak to yourself subconsciously and consciously. And then catch yourself the way that, if somebody asks you how you're doing, how you doing? If you say, "Oh, I'm doing all right," like notice how that sounds. That sounds really like bland. There's no juice in that whatsoever. Even if you're not feeling that way, you can say, "I'm feeling great." And notice the tonality in which I used. Change your tonality. It was a little higher pitched. There was a little more emphasis on it. There was a little exclamation. That allowed me to, that all of a sudden, like even as I'm sharing this, like my body just opened up, my shoulders just rolled back, my head just came up higher, my eyes, my pupils probably got bigger because there are physiological responses to our language that occur on a natural level without us even knowing. So all those little habits, those little things that we can do will start to build on them. And as you know, as you said, my career is in health and fitness. I mean, fitness as that point, I didn't know what the science was. Nobody really knew what the science was back then in 1994 of exercise. It
Hmm.
was so new and like it was just about looking good. There was, what's his name? Jack LaLanne and
There was
Jane
like
Fonda.
Gold's Gym and all that.
Yeah, Gold's
Yeah,
Gym,
because
but
you're
Arnold
in
Schwarzenegger, like it was
LA.
all
You're an
bodybuilders.
LA
Totally. There was
guy.
all
Yeah, so I'm an LA
it was all
girl. Yeah.
bodybuilding, like kind
Yeah.
of gym science. There was no real like hard science as there is now on exercise and the benefits of it. The number one prescription is, you probably know this better than even I, but I know is exercise
Hmm.
for mental health, is move your body. It doesn't have to be an hour in the gym. It could just be a walk in nature. It could be, doing 30 minutes of yoga or Pilates or going for a hike or going for a bike ride or going for a jog, whatever it looks like, however it shows up in your life, whatever you find fun or challenging and both, get out and do it on a daily basis. Move more, and your mind will start to follow, and you'll start to feel better. The natural responses, the endorphins, and the chemicals releases that are in there are going to help. And that's what I believe also helped me during that recovery because I was started to move in a way and I started to exercise in a way like that was more rehabilitative, that was more movement based, that was not about looking good and doing more abs to make my abs look sexier. Like it was just move, lift weights, feel good. What feels better than this? And then I started to just fine tune and build my own system. And that's how it feels. And that's kind of how I fell into my program, and
I
that's what
I
I
would
do with my
love
clients still to this day.
I would love to know. So you graduated East Coast, like then went
Hmm.
into the fitness industry, moved out to LA, or am I
Yeah.
missing things? Like
No, yeah, yeah,
how
there's a
did
little bit
you
in between there.
how did you like how did you first of all you rehabilitated yourself
Hmm.
and then you ended up like in this industry? Can you kind of touch on like how all of that piece came together? I would love to know that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I got back into college about a year after the accident, which was a miracle in of itself. And I took very light course load, which I told you was like bowling and
Mhm. I
like
took
activity
bowling. I took
classes.
bowling. Don't make
Bowling
fun
was
of it. I got a
it
college
wasn't that
credit for it.
easy,
I was horrible
right?
and I still am. And I took
Yeah.
fencing, by the way. But go on.
And it was you had to, actually it was great that you had to take these activity classes.
Uh-huh.
And so I ended up having to take summer school like for the rest of my college, the rest of the time that I spent at college. And one summer there was a certification course in I was in a kinesiology degree at the University of Maryland, which is the study of human health performance. Now it's called the School of Public Health.
Hmm.
But it was about like if you wanted to go to physical therapy school or medical school or occupational therapy, it was the study of like how the body moves, and you can then go into something of that field. So there was an exam or the course for the American College of Sports Medicine, which is like the best certification in the industry. So I took it and I got certified as a personal trainer, and I was getting my haircut done by the guy I'd get my haircut done in the local like barber there. And I told him that I was a certified personal trainer, and he said, "Do you want to train me? I'm skinny. I've never built muscle. I've always wanted to. You're in good shape. You know what you're doing now." And I was like, "Yeah, sure." I started training them for $20 an hour, found a little gym around the corner that allowed me to come in and train them. And I'd wake up at 7 in the morning and go train them before class 2, 3 times a week. And he saw results and started telling some of his clients, hairstylists telling he's feeling good about himself. His muscles are, growing. And I now had a business of like 5 clients, and my rate went from $20 an hour to $50 an hour. And I was training people down in DC and like kind of like now feeling really good. And then I had a great opportunity where I found myself in a position to interview for the White House as a trainer under the Clinton administration at the it's called the WAC, the White House Athletic Center.
Mm-hmm.
Long story short, I got the job, and that was again like pivotal moment in my career where I now didn't see myself as just like a personal trainer. I saw myself as like again, not to create a different, but a uniqueness. Like I had a high standard for myself. Like I'm going for the stars. I'm going for the glory. I want it all. Like I'm going to be the best personal trainer in the country. Like people are going to read about me one day. So then I moved to New York City, and I started working in New York City at the Sports Club LA in Rockefeller Center, where there was about 30 trainers, and I stood out and I got to be on TV and the NBC the Today Show and doing photo shoots. And long story short, after 2 years of that, I went for my dream to become a trainer to the stars in Los Angeles, where it was a slow start, not easy to transfer from New York to there.
Mm-hmm.
It was very, very challenging, but after about 4 years of really grinding and pushing and falling, and again, that whole like pick yourself back up, nearly having to tuck my tail between my legs and go home to my parents because I was running out of money and time. And I got a big break of working with Seal, the musician, him and Heidi Klum when they were about to get married,
I
and
just saw
worked
him.
with
I just
them.
saw him in
Oh, is that
concert
right?
at Beach Life.
Oh, no
Yeah, he was
way. I'm
good.
sure that was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's an amazing guy.
Yeah, he looks good,
And
by the
that
way.
kind
The
of
training came in handy.
really,
Yeah.
oh, that's good.
Yeah.
It's been a while,
Yeah.
but I know that even people that I've worked with still keep in touch with tell me that the things that I taught them, they still use, even if they're not working with me. I made differences in their life. So I hope that I did with him as well. And that was another like pivotal moment of where like, not that I was like starstruck or I wanted to train celebrities,
Mm-hmm.
but I believe that like your influence and the world can be leveraged by the influence in who you train, right? So if I'm a celebrity trainer, people are going to listen to more of what I'm going to say. I don't walk around saying, "Hey, I'm a celebrity trainer. You should listen to me." But because of sometimes the high standard, or if there's like something that I can use to market, like if you look at my book, 22 Ways of Optimal Health and Fitness, on the front, as seen on Dr. Oz, the Tyra Banks Show, the Today Show,
Mm-hmm.
E, I say that because the perception is real. When someone sees that, they're like, "Oh, this guy knows what he's talking about." And I promise you that I do. What is in here is like valuable and invaluable info that I used 22 years, 25, 30 years ago that I still will use 30 years from now. It's stuff that's timeless and ageless. And so I've been a celebrity trainer, and I opened up my own studio, and I've worked with dozens of celebrities and still do. And now I live in Orange County, and my fitness studio, Westwood Private Fitness, is in LA after COVID or during COVID. I moved my family down to Orange County to get a better quality of life, buy a home, have more, for less, because LA is expensive and it's just another city like New York, and it wasn't my vibe anymore.
Yeah.
But I wanted to keep my studio, and now I have 4 trainers that work with the people that come in and have stayed there. So it's been a blessing. And now I'm writing and lecturing and doing retreats at Canyon Ranch and Lake Austin Spa. And I've got 2 retreats coming up at Rancho La Puerta in Mexico, which are like these 5-star luxury resort spas. And I get to lecture and speak to people who are well-minded and want like more info on just to be better and do better, just like in your podcast.
Let me ask you a question, because you said 22. I'm not going to make you name all 22,
That's okay.
but I will say this, because just this morning I was listening to the news, and they were talking about Sanjay Gupta, who is
Mm,
he's a correspondent on CNN, but he's also I think he's a neurosurgeon. I might be wrong on that, but he's doing a whole series about Alzheimer's and fitness and how we age. And so I'm curious to know from you, just recovering, I'm assuming, because you said you still have things that you deal with from the brain injury. That's a lifelong process that you're going to have to deal with. Can
Yeah.
you talk to me a little bit about number one, the 22 things? Because you said that
Hmm.
no matter when you read them and you've been doing them for years, but just also about the mental health piece of your fitness, your physical fitness, and that whole, how it all connects. Because obviously you know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. So I would love to know your thoughts on that.
Thank you. And um, so the book is it's kind of it's created in a way. The first five chapters, I believe, are the most important. You can read and skip around. It's not necessarily in order.
Mm-hmm.
I call it more even than a book, a handbook. And the number one is know your why. So you need to know your why. And Simon Sinek had made this a very common, he's the best-selling author of Know Your Why. And it's a really important question you need to ask yourself before jumping into any endeavor, including like your health and your fitness. My why when recovery was I want to fully recover. I want to look normal again. I want to talk normal. I want to be normal. I want to be liked. I didn't want to be looked at and felt sorry for. I wanted to be amongst my friends as that same, fun, caring, loving, outgoing, guy that my friends knew. So that was my why as to why I was going to do what I was doing in the process of my recovery. And as you said, it's still a lifelong endeavor. It doesn't stop.
Mm-hmm.
So know your why. You need to ask yourself that question. If it's losing weight, why do you want to lose weight? Because you want to look better. Why do you want to look better? You want to look better for your wife, or your husband, or you want to feel good. You want to move better. However it looks, it's different for everybody, but there are definitely predictable ways. And what I do when I work with people is I help break them down and really get to the core value of that why, so that when they don't do what they are expected to do or what I coach them to do, I can throw that why back at them and stimulate their emotions. Because when you're emotionally tied into something, which is again your mental state, your your consistency and follow through will be more likely.
Mm-hmm.
You'll do it more if you're emotionally tied into something rather than it's just a thought. So that I believe is the most important question and start in any endeavor, which is going to tie way into your mental health because again, that's where it first starts. Then chapter two is you have to believe it before you can achieve it. And there again goes into your mindset.
Mm-hmm.
You can't achieve anything if you don't believe it that you can. Unless you go through life haphazardly and just go with the flow, and you're bouncing around like a pinball machine, a pinball in a pinball machine. You have to have a purpose. What is that? Why is going to help you do that? So if you want to lose 10 pounds, if you want to move more, if you want to look better, if you want to recover, you want to feel better or have a more positive outlook on life, you have to believe that you're going to do that. You have to know, like, what does that look like? Visualize yourself already there before it even happens. See, like athletes, what they do and what I used to do is they see themselves in that game playing the position that they're playing, doing the play that they've practiced all week long in that game before you even get on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Visualization and believing it and seeing it before it even happens is one of the most profound and like awesome experiences that you can do. The third chapter is move daily. Moving changes your states instantly. It gets you from being sedentary and feeling sluggish. Like you can get up, and what I do with people when I coach them is I get them up and stand and move and like shake their body. Like when you look again and you see athletes before they go out on the field, they don't walk out like kind of like ho hum and relax. They go out with a physical state. Their shoulders are back. They have a huddle and they have a chant and they break it, with like some kind of a big celebration,
Mm-hmm.
and that puts them into a state to go into the situation that they're going into. So moving your body, just getting out and going for a walk or doing something physically. Notice I didn't say exercise daily. I just said move daily. Get up and move more. Number four is be consistent. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Be consistent in anything that you do. Whatever it is that why, whatever the decision you make on moving, just be consistent at it. The consistency is the most important thing in, I believe, to building your success. Number five, and I'll stop here, and we talked about this, is don't give up. You don't give up. Just keep going at it. You're going to fall. You're going to fail. You're going to miss a day. You're going to miss 2 days maybe. But make a rule and say, there's nothing, I'm not going to miss more than 2 days. I'm not going to, like, if I miss a meal or skip a meal, or if I don't feel good, or if I don't use the right language, if I heard myself say to somebody like, oh, I'm okay, well, acknowledge it, and then make sure next time somebody asks you how you're doing, you say, I'm doing great. And notice again how I changed my language, how I changed my tone, how I emphasize that. Just give that like practice, that momentum will build, and you'll find yourself in a new way of doing, like new habits that will become the new way that you are operating your life. It's a new operating system. You know how we do upload our iPhones and computers and have new operating systems every 6 months? Like, we need to do that as people. We have to upgrade our operating system. And by doing the things that I teach in the book and how I'm expressing to you here, you can change your operating system from a 1.0, 2.0 to a 2.2 to a 3.0. And it's all progressive. It doesn't happen overnight. So don't expect results in a week or in a month. Just consistently do it almost without expectation, and you'll start to see and feel the differences, and people will notice, and hopefully they'll share in that as well. And even if they don't worry about it. Just keep doing it.
I think too, like I brought up that piece about the brain health, like body health piece of it. So I'm just going to use my own story because my listeners probably are going to say, shut up again, Meghan. So I had a hysterectomy like 3 months ago, which they took my organs out, and then I have like little holes like drilled into it was a blast. It was really fun. And I'm somebody that has always worked out my whole life. Okay. But I've like yo-yoed. I'm down 30 pounds right now. Thank you very much. That was hard. And not a fun process, but I'm doing great. I'm feeling great. But I will say this. I used to do Barry's boot camp like 4 days a week. I did Soul Cycle. I would do doubles. I was that like nutcase that was like doing double Soul Cycle classes. And I was addicted to like that feeling of working out all the time. And now that I'm getting older, I'm kind of like, well, I'm still recovering. I know it's been 3 months, but honestly, when you go through a surgery like that, it takes time. But I don't like that I'm turning into mush, and that I'm kind of like just struggling to like even want to speed walk. I'm somebody that has two labs, and I used to walk my labs like 4 miles a day. I live at the beach. Like I live for being by the ocean, and I love to walk. It totally helps my mental health. But what you just said, I want to touch on. I have been having a really hard time motivating to get back to it. It's kind of like this thing where you said not every day is going to be easy and you're going to want to get up. But I have been struggling with like even wanting to do anything at all. I have you see my Peloton behind me. It's not being used, Steve. I'm just going to let you know right now. The Peloton is a coat
Well, that's
hanger.
why Peloton stock is at like $2.
Well,
Because most
I
people's
also
Pelotons aren't moving anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, but
Yeah,
also I'm a Soul Cycle girl. I used to love Soul
yeah.
Cycle, but for me, I have a hard time using that thing. So can you?
Well, what I would recommend is just get out and move. Like, what people tend to do is they want to pick up where they left off,
Mm-hmm.
right? Just get out and move. And that, like, you just expressed how much you enjoy being on the beach and walking your dogs. Get out and do that with no expectation of, like, this isn't about exercise. This is about just moving. Change the paradigm from, looking good to feeling good, or exercising to moving. And then the movement part will kind of go. And then you know what? There might be maybe not a soul cycle, but another type of spin class or cycle class near where you're at, and jump in there without, again, that idea that you need to crush it and do double sessions a day. Like, it's like better to run the marathon than it is to do the sprints.
Yeah, yeah, I love that, and I think a lot of my listeners, like they're aging and they want to. A lot of my listeners are female, and as we get older, it's harder to like want to motivate to go and do soul cycle classes and all of that stuff. I'm at the point now where I just don't want to hurt myself. And like, if that means like water ballet or water aerobics, maybe I'm going that route. I don't know. We'll see.
I would say you're not there
Okay.
yet. And even if
Okay.
you did decide to do that,
Okay.
that's not a bad thing. That's
Yeah.
not a bad thing. And actually, that could be kind of fun. It's just that it has the stigma of old
I
people.
know.
Like,
I'm
what
joking.
was that movie?
You see me with
Cocoon. Remember
I love
Cocoon?
that
That movie,
movie.
Cocoon?
Yeah.
Yeah, where they were all trying to
You
stay,
see
and
me
you
with
could
like
see them in
my
the pool.
flower, like remember those
Yeah,
flower caps?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. I'm not ready for that
totally.
yet. No.
Not yet, but even if you did, I mean, I bet you would find it to be fun and challenging in a lot of new ways. Times do change. I mean, people have to change what they do, their modalities. What worked in your 30s and 40s isn't necessarily going to work in your 50s and 60s. And you got to know what you can do because not everybody's built for that. Like, not everybody, I'm not built for marathons. I ran one marathon, it was great, LA Marathon, but I would never do one again because I want to be able to preserve my body. I don't want to have a hip replacement at
Yeah.
55 years old or 60 years old. I don't want to have like I just it's okay. Like, I don't need to do that stuff. It's ego if I decided to do that, and I have to check myself. So just want to like tell the listeners, run your own race. And that's obviously a metaphor. Do what makes you feel good. And that's why I say move daily. Don't exercise. Don't think about it becoming a workout and how you got to do this and how you got to program it. Just go out for that walk on the beach with your dogs. You're going to feel great.
What about well, also, I want to say this because I want to toot my own horn because I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but I did run 2.5 marathons. And now,
Nice.
and now, I can barely probably run around the block, but I can always brag about that when I'm old. I can be like, guess what, everyone? I ran 2.5 marathons and now I do not run anymore. But like you said, your body really, I mean, my body just couldn't do it. I started to have back
Yeah.
issues and all kinds of things. I want to know about the as like the aging piece for a lot of my
Mhm.
listeners, like I just talked about, you know, the mental health like aging component and also like the diet component if you can touch on
Mhm.
that really briefly.
Yeah. Aging, lifespan aging is and aging well is the game that I'm playing now, and is a very popular sort of, I guess, discussion in wellness
Hmm.
today more than ever because we're living longer, right? And it's no good to live a long life if you can't be functional. And functional being means being able to move around, doing the things that, contribute to your quality of life. So, how do we do that? How do we age gracefully? Moving, again, I keep reinforcing that, but that's number one. Continue to move. If you stay sedentary or sit long, then your body's going to feel that. The medicine is in the movement. That's why I say movement is medicine. And that's actually in the book there as well. Um, so do that. The other thing you touched on is nutrition. Nutrition is vital. If we were to have this podcast 15, 20 years ago, I'd say, nutrition is important. And it was just because I was ignorant and I didn't really, want to I didn't want to, um, what's the word? Like consider that as one of the most important factors, but it absolutely is. Like 80% of what you and how you're going to be, like, remember the saying, you are what you eat, it really, truly does matter. Doesn't necessarily matter like what kind of diet. And a lot of people ask me, what diet do you believe in? It's like the one that you're consistent with, the one that works for you. That's really hard. If I had the magic pill or the number or the diet, I'd be a bazillionaire, a zillionaire. Like, there is none one magic number that we do know. And it's agreed upon so many of even the people that I've interviewed on my podcast is where it's coming from, the sourcing of it, right? So make sure it's coming from a great source where it's free range, hormone free, non GMO, organic, all of that, right? It's
Hmm.
nothing new and it's no new science. Eat more vegetables than meat, like have more greens on your plates. Have it be 60% greens and 40% of a protein. Have things that are balanced. Make sure your portion sizes are not too big. Eat small. Intermittent fasting is buzzword, and a lot of people are practicing it in ways that may not be necessarily healthy. Intermittent fasting literally just means have your last meal at the end of the day around 6 or 7 p.m., which is hard for many to do, especially those career oriented people. And don't eat breakfast until 7 a.m. Because you should be waking up at like 6. So there's an intermittent fast there of 12 hours, which gives your body time to rest and rejuvenate. But what has happened is we work longer hours, we come home, we're eating dinner at 8, 9 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
Then we wake up and we're, dealing with whatever we need to deal with. We're not eating and we're having coffee to stimulate ourselves, and we're having a quick like snack, a bagel or a muffin. Not to say those are bad, but that's what we're counting on. It's a quick fix and it's not necessarily balanced. And then we're having a salad for lunch because we think it's healthy and it's easy to get somewhere when you're at work. And then you come home and you're ravenous and you're hungry and you have a big meal, and it just perpetuates this cycle. You need to be eating things in the morning where you're having a larger meal in the morning. So breakfast like a king or a queen, lunch like a prince or a princess, and dinner like a pauper. So you want to have a bigger, heavier meal in the morning and then start to taper down as the day goes on, because food is your fuel for the day. And as your day ends, you should be doing less and you need less energy. So
I think
the
that's
point
true.
is,
I want to add
it's
that that's
absolutely
because I was at my heaviest during COVID. I was like downing like bottles of wine, and I was a hot mess, and my listeners know that. And then now I eat a very, very small dinner. Like so
great.
I literally eat like a veggie burrito every morning, like a healthy one, because I don't eat
Mhm.
meat. So I eat like a healthy one. It's packed with protein. And so I never would have done that before. I was always like eating like a zone bar or like something stupid. Now I eat a big breakfast, a decent lunch, and then I eat a very small dinner. And that has really worked for me. And I'm a female and aging and going through all this stuff. So I want to add my 2 cents in there that really has helped me as well.
I'm glad that you did, and I appreciate that you did to reinforce that. And it does work. And what I'm going to tell you, and what I shared earlier in the chapter in my book, I think it was chapter 4, be consistent.
Hmm.
Just stay consistent. Don't. People are dabblers. I call them. They like. I tried that. Well, how long did you do it for, right? And like I did it about a month. I tried it for about a month. I didn't really see any results. Well, a month, ladies and gentlemen, is not long enough to
Yeah.
get a result that you want. Like you need to do this over time, like a year, 2 years, 3 years, when then all of a sudden it becomes a total norm. It's your habit.
Yeah.
So that is going to show up in your blood results and your blood count. And that's so important too. It's not just how you look or the clothes fit. Get your blood taken at least once a year, and not necessarily always by your general practitioner. Go to like Quest Diagnostics and go on their website and find they have a deeper analysis of your blood work where you can pay a little bit extra for a blood analysis where you're getting a little bit more of a profile on certain hormones and other types of measures that are going to play into a bigger picture. And then your GP can tell you like what that means and how it is. Even if they order like a physical for you, just go in and add, say, can I add, a few more things, and go in and add, several more things on there.
I
So
think that's
you'll be able to
great.
see a lot more.
Okay, so for the sake of time, because this
Hmm.
is the grand finale of the podcast that I have been looking forward to since we first met this morning, the new book. And I want you to tell me why
Yes.
you wrote this book. I also want you to tell me how to become a better pickleball player, because I'm not good and my husband's really good and I hate it. So tell us, share.
Okay. So, Pickleball Power, it's a comprehensive guide to staying healthy and fit for peak performance. I joined when I moved down to Orange County, the Newport Beach Pickleball
I've been
Club,
there. It's so
and
fun. Yeah.
it's beautiful. It's a
Yeah.
great place,
Yeah.
right? And we had a lot of, and it's a great community. But what I was hearing and seeing, and even like I was playing with people, because I would go there by myself and just kind of play pickup games with people, and someone would go down with like an Achilles tendon sort of sprain or something, and I would say, and I wasn't there to like poach for clients or anything like that, but I would like, this is kind of what I do. Let me see if I can help you, and I would give them some practical tips or things they could do on the sideline there and try to mend themselves or get back into the game. And I started hearing more and more about injuries and like really bad injuries. Again, Achilles tendons tears, shoulder injuries, tennis elbow, which people are now calling pickleball elbow. And I was starting to work with a client as well that was big into pickleball and helping her. And so I just saw a uniqueness. I always like to kind of be at the front of something, be one of the leaders in a movement. And I decided I opened up an Instagram account in like the beginning of the new year called the Best Pickleball Workouts. And I was like going to see like what it was going to like, this was going to be like my testing, like how many people are they going to be attracted to this? So I started doing like workouts, things on little simple exercises on the pickleball court there and putting
Yeah.
it out there. And really quickly, I mean, there's not a whole lot of 350 followers on there, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I didn't do a whole lot to get them. And it was like just sort of this organic thing. And I liked writing and I love writing and speaking, as you could tell. And I said, you know what? There's no books out there. I went on to Amazon and I saw like very little, if any, books on pickleball, at least into the context of what I was going to put it on. And I decided that this was going to be it. And Pickleball Power came to me just kind of like in a brainstorming session. And I wanted it to be a guide, like again, sort of like my original book, for people to be able to play. It gets into the techniques, the beginning of like pickleball rules. It's for beginners all the way to advanced level. It talks about mindset. So your mindset is in here on how to be able to, like, the mind body connection is number two. And notice I have it in the beginning of the book because going into a game of pickleball, if you don't have a winning mindset, you're not going to be able to play well. So how do you prepare? How do you focus? How do you prepare yourself for that mental toughness and resiliency that you and I talked about that maybe I got from playing sports growing up? So how do you go about doing that? Chapter three is on injury, or chapter five. I skipped to chapter where chapter three is in nutrition for pickleball. So again, notice where I put it in the beginning because you got to fuel yourself. You got to be able to eat the right things. And eating for pickleball is, as you know, a very demanding sport. High energy, long duration. You're out there typically playing for at least 20 to 30 minutes. You could play 2 or 3 or 4 games. You're out there for an hour and a half. It's normally sometimes played in areas that it's warm, so you're perspiring a lot. So we get into electrolytes and the ability to, like, what you do when you eat before, and then what you can eat after in recovering, so that you can get out there the next day or maybe in between a game or a set. And then you get into injury prevention, which I really want to emphasize on here based on what I just talked about. Like, how do we prevent injuries and the common injuries? What can you do at home? How do you warm up before you go play? I can't tell you how many times I saw people get out there and like literally go from their 8, 9 hour day at work out onto, into their car and onto the pickleball court and do nothing to warm up and just start playing. That's a recipe for disaster. So how do you go
That
out
would be
and
me.
warm
That
up?
would be me.
Yeah.
It is true. I mean, something that's great about pickleball too is like it is becoming a sport because I was a horrible tennis player. I mean, I am a horrible tennis player. And when somebody was like, let's play pickleball, I had no interest. My husband was asking me to play for like 2 years. Finally, I went to this tournament at that club. It was somebody's
Oh,
50th
cool.
birthday. And I picked up the racket for the first time. I was like, this is the most fun thing I've ever played in my life. I'm still not good
Hmm.
because I'm not consistent with it. But it is true. Like the moms, like my mom friends and I play sometimes, and we'll just go out there and not stretch, not do any of those things. And there are more and more older people that I'm seeing playing pickleball. And it is,
Hmm.
that does make sense that they're getting like tennis elbow and hurting themselves. So I think that's so important that you're writing this book and you have that book out. I'm going to read it and I'm going to get it for my
Thank you.
husband.
Yeah. It's really important. One of the biggest reasons for for physical therapy right now, or why people are coming in, is from pickleball injuries.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, it's the fastest growing sport in the country and the world for that matter. And more people are getting injured. The weekend warrior syndrome. So you're just not prepared for it. And there are simple things that you could do. And the way that I address it in here, going out, if you were to go on the pickleball court before, because not too many people warm up, it's not part of the process of warming up. I give you ways to do it without making it look like you're warming up. Like people aren't going to be like, "Oh my God, look at Megan over there!" Like she's going through this whole like warm up routine. What
Yeah.
is she doing? She thinks she's a pro. Where that may look silly because unfortunately the community of pickleball people aren't warming up. It's just kind of like get out and play. But in tennis, people warm up in tennis. It's just something that people do, and you see it, and it's not looked upon as in any. And I want to change that. And the one of the last chapter in here is pickleball specific training. So different exercises that you can do with no equipment that will benefit your hips, your ankles, your core, your swing, and improve your power, your stroke, your accuracy, your ability to change direction, to stop and slow down. So these are all really important skill sets to have to play at peak performance.
Okay. Well, I'm going to tell my listeners if you need to, I'm going to read the book. We got connected very last minute. So that's why I have not gotten the book yet or read the book, but Pickleball Power, I can't wait to read it. If you have never played pickleball before, by the way, it is so much fun. It's a great social sport. It's a great way. If I can play it, I was never a good athlete, but I love to do like physical stuff. I actually play, even though like I said, I'm not very good. It's just a lot of fun. It's a good social sport. It's a good way to get your activities, your steps in.
Yeah.
So like, check it out, Steve. It was so awesome to meet you today. Thank you to Beth Grossman,
Thank you, Meghan.
the angel that I love. Beth, I have to give you a shout out for introducing us. And everyone, please go out and get Steve's book. You can also go check him out on his website, stevejordan.com. Pickleball Power is his new book.
And it's available on Amazon, as well as 22 Ways to Optimal Health and Fitness is available on Amazon as well.
Okay, I love the plug. Thank you. And also, you can check out his podcast, The Steve Jordan Experience, which I'm going to check out because he's been doing this 7 years. Always impressive. And honestly, like, your story is so inspiring. And so it's such an honor to meet you today. And like I say at the end of every podcast, keep going. You matter. Your story matters. Thanks, Steve.
Judging Meghan with Meghan Judge.